Narayan Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayodhira Nashta Prayasho Padreshu Nityam Bhagata Sevyo Bhagati Ramashuki Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Nigamaka Paragaritam Param Shukam Karamita Dravi Samitam Pivata Bhagatam Rashamarya Mahora Horsi Puvaham Krishna Swadam Bhagate Dhammikini Karonashtam Dishamasha Paranako Dunodidaham Tamapia Dabrishita Bishadamiva Samyapi Eda Vidambidixaram Prapyahi Dihormagaram Sanklesha Nirvanam Santi Nanyataham Om Aganati Maranda Shanganagana Sanagaya Chaksurun Miritam Yanatashmai Srigadvedamha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yana Bhutare Swayam Rupakaramayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sriguru Siyata Parakamanam Srigurun Vaishnavamscha Sirupam Sagadam Sahagana Daganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Ladita Shri Vishakanvitam Stam Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutare Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanam Namaste Saraswati Deva Guruvani Pacharine Nirvashesa Sanjivani Praskata Desara Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Good morning. Thanks to y'all for joining us on Wisdom Wednesday, and that's the peacocks also thanking you from outside my window. Once again, we're a little late. I started early to work on the audio. Yesterday, it took us about 12 or 14 minutes to get the audio sorted out before we could get an echo and a reverb out of it. So today I thought I'd start early, start about 25 minutes early. As long as I was using my professional Yeti microphone, there was no way I could get rid of the reverb and the echo. So I've got the microphone unplugged off to one side. We're using the computer audio. So that means I'm a little bit further away from the microphone, which is in the computer. And it also means that the quality is not nearly as good. It might be a little more, sound like I'm at the bottom of the well or a little more distant. You're welcome to give me your feedback in the comment section as far as I can see it there. Walk me through anything that needs to be walked through. Otherwise, if it's intelligible, if you can understand what it is that we're saying, then we will launch into today's discussion. By the way, for those who are in Utah, we have Rath Yatra coming up on Sunday at the Salt Lake City Temple from 6 to 8 o'clock. I'm not sure what arrangements the devotees up there have made for streaming it live on Facebook, but most of the programs are live on Facebook. So there's a reasonable expectation that if you're not from Utah, you can drop into the event through Facebook Live. Otherwise, if you're within driving distance, please come and join us Sunday night at 6 o'clock. And then also we have our regular Saturday night program, which basically starts at 7 and goes to 8:30. I'm going to go up to Salt Lake Saturday night, give the talk, spend the night, do a little gardening and puttering around on Sunday, and then give another talk and participate in the ecstatic Rath Yatra procession. If you've decided to come, I will look forward to seeing you there. Good morning, Rob. How and where are you? If you can hear me.
Morning, Prabhuji. I'm at home with my son, just listening in.
Good morning, Cal.
Sounds much better today.
Oh, glad. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, put aside the professional microphone, which is, I didn't want to do that, but anyway, it was just causing trouble some or other. I'll have to look at the USB port I'm plugging it in. Maybe change that up. It might make a difference. Anyway, we're eager to talk to you more about this fascinating subject of karma and our adventures, our misadventures as spirit souls in the material world. Once again, the verse is Tashaiva heto priyate kovida nalabhyate yakparamurindana talabhyate dukavadan yadashukam kalena sarvata gavira ramasha. Persons who are actually kovida, intelligent, and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable by wandering from the highest planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala Loka. Remember our discussion yesterday was based on Abrahma Bhuvanaka Purnarjan Mamu Petu Purnarjan Purnarjan Manavidite. From the highest planet to the lowest, they're all places of misery where repeated birth and death takes place. However, those who surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna, they do not have to undergo the miseries, tribulations of repeated birth and death, but they get, having gotten shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, which have nothing to do with this material world, nothing to do with the conditions of birth, death, disease, and old age, one can get released from material entanglement. The verse goes on to say that as far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be attained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries, though we do not want them. So there was a question asked yesterday by Jayashree Radhe about sense gratification. I forget the exact wording, something to the effect that should we forsake all sense gratification? When we talk about giving up sense gratification, we're talking about giving up selfish, self-centered, bodily based sense gratification, independent from or separate of Krishna. Whether you're in spiritual consciousness or material consciousness, don't get a misunderstanding on this point. Sense gratification is going to be there in either place. But when we talk about giving up material sense gratification, we're talking about egotistical, self-centered, bodily based sense gratification. And having turned our back on that, are we in some area where there's no sense gratification whatsoever? Well, let me ask you, whenever you go out one door, when you leave one room through a doorway, where are you? Are you nowhere? Are you just floating in space, like in some science fiction movie? Or is it our experience that when we use a doorway to go out one room, then we're in another room or another place, isn't it? So if you leave the room, so to speak, of self-centered material sense gratification, you don't leave walls and ceilings and spaces. You go into another space. And what I'm saying is that sense gratification is there in the conditioned state, and it's also there in the liberated state. What's the difference? One verse in the Chaitanya Charita says, iron and gold are both metals. So we're talking about two different metals here. We're not talking about metal and non-metal. We're talking about two different metals, but they're of different value. They're of different quality. Sense gratification has to be there, but when we say give up material sense gratification, what we're saying is give it up in favor of, leave the room of material sense gratification and enter into the realm of spiritual sense gratification. What does that mean? Material sense gratification means to satisfy men's senses. Spiritual sense gratification means to satisfy the senses of Krishna. And when you satisfy Krishna's senses, then and then only do you actually satisfy not only your senses, but the senses of everybody else as well. Yata taru malana sayachana tatskana pranoparyaksha yatendram tatayava savaram achuteja. Just as by watering the root of the tree, all the branches, flowers, and leaves of the tree are nourished, or by putting food in the stomach, automatically all the senses, jitendriya, are automatically satisfied. Similarly, by gearing up, trying to please the senses, the divine transcendental senses of the Lord, then one pleases not only one's senses, but the senses of others as well. And it says, Rishikesha Rishikena Sevanam Bhaktir Uttama. Tama means ignorance. In ignorance, one thinks of oneself as this body. One thinks of the extension of this body in terms of wife and family and friends and country as part of oneself. And one speaks and thinks only in terms of I and mine. This is it, ignorance. Dehi sarva shashangato. Thinking oneself to be the body and the mind. And in this way, one lives one's life in darkness, committing acts which are contrary to the harmonious laws of material nature, and lives in darkness, dies in darkness, and is reborn in darkness. Jatashahid Druvamitir Tajmara Pariyata Nattum Sochidamaris. For one who is born, death is certain. And without Krishna consciousness, without making that transition from personal sense gratification, independent sense gratification, to pleasing the senses of the Lord, watering the root, putting food in the stomach without making that change, then for one who has died, birth is also certain. And what we have here is a never-ending cycle: birth, death, disease, and old age. As we said yesterday, we quoted Rishabh, Nonam pramata kurite karma, one who is pramata, who thinks there's nothing other than sense gratification. This is the mentality of the animals: dogs, hogs, cats, asses. They think there's nothing more than food and sex. We have llamas, and the male llamas are just always looking over the fence. They do not take their eyes off the female llamas, not for one moment. There might be shade in their enclosure, or they'll get relief from the 106, 107-degree heat. But if by sitting in the shade, they cannot have a full view of the female llamas, they will sit out in the sun in 106-degree heat, preferring to suffer the scorching heat of the sun as long as they can keep their eye on the female llamas and their tongues hanging outside of their mouths out of an excess of kama, lusty desire. So this is a good example how much trouble we put ourselves to simply because of this bodily attachments and the hankerings of the bodily senses. Yashtunarayana Brahmabuddha Samadvinanda Sapasandi Bhavedra. One who does not elevate one's consciousness, one who does not focus on the lotus feet of Narayan, which are above us like the sun in the sky, and who does not aspire to reach up, and grasp those lotus feet of Narayan, which will extract us from the ocean of this material world. One who has no sense of that, Yashtu Narayanam Devam. Shamadvinaga Bhikshata. Samadvin means is no better than, is equal to, Sapashandi Bhavedram, an animal. The only difference between a human being who is devoid of God consciousness and an animal devoid of God consciousness, the animal generally has 4 legs and the human has 2 legs. Such a person who's totally ignorant and uninterested in spiritual life is called a Dvipada Pashu, a 2-legged animal, because of their conviction that there's nothing more than sense gratification. It is explained. There's Ananda Maya and there's Anamaya. These are 2 levels of consciousness. Anamaya means food. The animals, for the animals, the absolute truth is food. I juice every morning with my champion juicer, and I have pulp. So I bring a bowl of this pulped apple, pulped kiwi fruits, whatever's cheap, pulped pineapple. Pineapples are $1 each now. Apples. So I have a bowl full of pulp, and I come out the back of the kitchen door. The female llamas are to the left. There's a male llama straight ahead, and there's 2 males on the other side. And as soon as I appear back with this pulp, and I have to make a decision, which one am I going to give this bowl of pulp to? And they're all like looking over the fence, spitting at each other. Their tongues are hanging out. It's if we had such eagerness for God, we'd be back home, back to God right now. The animal consciousness have no sense of God or higher levels of realization, but for the animal, the absolute truth is food. They think about it, they meditate upon it, they hanker after it, they daydream about it. Food and sex. That's all she wrote for the animals. If they can get food, for them, that's as good as it gets. That's as high as it goes. That's called anamoya, consciousness of food, as being the be-all and end-all. Now there's a similar term with an extra syllable, Ananda. Ananda, Moya means level of consciousness. So Anamoya means the level of consciousness whereby for you, food is God. Ananda Moya is a level of consciousness where God is God. And by connecting the individual soul, the jiva, which is 1/10,000 the size of the tip of the hair, to the Supreme Lord, who is omnipotent, omniscient, all powerful, all beautiful, all humble, then one experiences a kind of bliss which is inconceivable and unavailable to the animals. This is what we need to step into in this human form. Ramanti yoginam anante. Those who are yogis. And yogi in the traditional sense, in the proper and meaningful sense, does not just refer to stretching and exercises. That is something you can do an hour a day to keep fit. But to what purpose? Keeping fit is not an end in and of itself. If you do yoga to keep fit, to keep looking trim, to be attractive to the boys and the girls, then you're still an animal. You haven't made the higher connection because you're just taking so-called yoga in order to make the body pretty, to preen the body, and again to feed the body. And you'll notice how people on this level always talk about the body, and they always talk about diets, nutrition, which is good. There's nothing wrong with all of that. Again, we do need to keep the body fit, but that's not to think of keeping the body fit and good looking is no higher consciousness than that of the animal. So not everyone who's a yogi, not everyone who practices yoga in the modern sense is actually of higher consciousness. It may just be interested in those things that the animals are interested. But this Ramanti yoginam anante refers to those who made the yoke, who made the connection. Yoga is the derivative of our English word yoke. It means union. Yoga is to connect to the God. And as a yogi who wants to connect with God, you can do exercises and stretching for an hour a day. That's good. It's great. But what purpose do you have in mind for doing this? Is it just to attract the opposite sex or to live longer? The purpose of everything that you do, and again, breathing and stretching can be part of it, but also how about earning a living? Can that be yoga? Yes, as long as you dedicate a portion of your salary or earnings to the Lord from whom it all comes. You're working in a factory, you're making manufactured goods, you're selling them for a profit. The owner of the company makes a very good living off of that, and he's obliged to pay his employees to keep the whole thing going, to keep his profits coming. So without those raw items, without those raw elements from which you manufacture desirable commodities, and without the intelligence with which you can produce these and market these and sell them, you're out in the cold. You don't have a way to put a roof over your head or feed your kids or anything. All that's coming from God. And so it behooves you to keep your connection with God. You're connected with Him by bringing in the raw goods. You're connected with Him when you manufacture them. You're connected with Him when, by your intelligence, you make a product and you package it attractively and you advertise and you market it. All that intelligence and those raw materials are given to you by God. So then how can you just take those profits, take those fruits, and totally ignore giving back to God with gratitude, with recognition? So even a person who's out in the marketplace and marketing or manufacturing or procuring or entrepreneurship or venture capital should give at least 10% back to God. Actually, everything we have, we owe to God. So rather than giving 10%, we should think, we give 100% and God allows us to keep 90%, 50% for paying the bills, the routine bills, then another 15, 20% for emergencies, for disasters and reversals when you get laid off your work, and then some savings should also be there as well, 15 to 20%, but at least 10% you go to God. So even a businessman wearing a suit and tie with a morning commute can be a yogi. Oh, a mother who raises children and teaches them Srimad Bhagavatam in our Boise Center. There are at least 4 or 5 luminaries that have come out of the Boise Center, the senior devotees, Prabhupada disciples at the Boise Hare Krishna Center. On the elemental level, the primary level, they all homeschooled their kids and then sent them off to colleges where they graduated at the age of 15 were 16 years old with a college degree. They all got scholarships to Harvard, Yale, Cambridge. They all went on to get advanced degrees, either in theology, as Ravi Gupta does, or electrical engineering. And they're all running temples and teaching in and of themselves because of the good spiritual nourishment and training, the good example that their parents set. So here are examples of mothers and fathers, parents, who have been yogis in terms of parenting, in terms of being fathers and mothers and spouses. Maybe you're an artist. You like to string together flower gardens. You like to do music, singing in the temple. We'll sing for God, string together, make flower arrangements for God. Maybe you're a Michelangelo cleaning. Maybe you know window cleaning or floor cleaning. Do that for God. Yoga is not something you do an hour a day just to keep fit. Yoga is something you do 24 hours a day to remain connected with God. And even though this body, which we use as an implement to serve the Lord in yoga, and the results, one time we had a person staying in the temple for some period of time, didn't last very long because he was extremely critical. He saw fault wherever he looked. So he would clean up the floor. About once a week, he would clean the floor, mopping, and I did a great, scrupulous job. But then he seemed to have a problem with people walking on his clean floor. you, cleaning the floor that's great. That's great, but people are going to walk on it. That's how it gets dirty in the first place. We have a temple. It's open to the public, and whether you like it or not, people are going to come and walk in your clean floor. So he didn't like the fact because he cleaned the floor, and he wasn't surrendered to the idea that you have to clean the floor every day. He thought, well, I can clean the floor once, and then everybody should stay off of it. That's not how it works. That you would like it to be that way. We'd like to take maybe one shower a year. We'd like that. We don't want to have to take time out of a busy day for taking a shower and getting clean, but you have to do it. That's just the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it. So this guy would get mad when people would walk on his clean floor. But that's what is that's how we become purified. We do that same devotional activities consistently, routinely, regularly. Every day we show up with our skills and our talents and we put them on the altar and we say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Reporting for duty, sir, at Mangal Arti, at Bhagavatam class, at Guru Puja. Reporting for duty, sir, what you've given me, the gifts and talents with which you've bestowed me, I am putting them back on the altar for you. That's yoga. Everyone can and should be a yogi. We're built as yogis. We're constructed as yogis. And we lose that. We fall from that when we become only self-interested, when it becomes all about me and mine. That is Janasya Moho Aham Mam Eti. Janasya Moha. Moha means illusion, to think that it's all about you. You didn't create your body. You didn't create your mind. You didn't muster up your talents and your gifts. You were created by an ID, an intelligent designer for a unique and uplifting purpose. Now you need to research. You need to find out what that general purpose for which you were created is and what you as a unique, one-of-a-kind individual can do. I know that we're all meant to glorify the Lord. We're all meant to take and to honor his prasadam. We're all meant to congregate and chant his holy names and join together in festivals like this upcoming Rath Yatra festival in Salt Lake City. That's our general purpose, to be all a chorus, to be all in symphonious harmony and glorifying the source from which we all come. But then above and beyond that, God's thumbprint is on each and every one of us. Each and every one of us have a unique ability. My Bobby, my wife, she likes to build things and she likes to paint. She likes to take matter, unorganized, so-called unorganized matter, and she likes to configure it in such a way as people think of God, such as the building, the architecture behind me, the temple in Salt Lake City. Earlier in her Krishna conscious career, she redid a Mormon chapel in Berkeley, uh, just called New Jagannath Puri. She did the temple in Melbourne, Australia. She did the decorations in the temple and restaurant in London, in Soho. So she has a history and a career of configuring the material elements in such a way as to create beautiful architecture and beautiful designs. She also loves to paint. Right now, you wouldn't believe the paintings of Radha and Krishna she's working on for the Salt Lake City Temple. Yam, Shaima Shindaramachinta Sharupam. Beautiful, beautiful. This is yoga. Yata Pravita Bhutanam Yenasaram Shakamanam Siddhim Vedanti Manavaha. There isn't one profile, one type of person who's pleasing to the Lord, and the others are all out of luck. Whatever it is that you are, whoever it is you are, whatever gender, whatever ethnicity, whatever race, whatever background, you can become perfect by performance of your work in a consistent, steady uh, uh, way that the Lord can count on you. So even though our bodies are temporary, the materials with which we work, this temple behind me is made, they used to build things with concrete, but concrete falls apart after a few years. I don't know the history of it. I don't know the science or the technology of it, but at some point they found that when you shoot concrete into a mold, for instance, and you include millions and millions of little resinal fiberglass particles, gives the concrete a lot more longevity. So this is those arches and columns, those um, panels for the railing are GFRC, glass fiber reinforced concrete. So they're expected to last well over 100 years. But even if they last the maximum 100 years or 150 years or 200 years, still it's temporary. It's going to be dissolved in due course of time. From dust you come, to dust you go. But can I tell you the energy, the senses, the spiritual senses that you have that exist and drive and motivate the gross physical body and the subtle mental body, that is eternal. Whenever you do anything that has a connection with the Lord, that energy, that devotion, that is eternal, and you will get an eternal benefit. Even a small effort, little advance in devotional service case saves them from the great danger. However, those who are left behind, stragglers, dullards, laggards on the spiritual path, who are mad after sense gratification, who doggedly refuse to acknowledge that the only thing of real value is the spirit soul which illuminates the body, who fail to see what's obvious, that as soon as the soul leaves this body is just a bunch of chemicals, not even worth $20. After a few days, it begins to rot and smell bad. Yet they think on this body. This is, I believe, in the 6th canto. It says that the destination of this body will be stool, ashes, or earth. It'll be buried and become ashes. It'll be thrown on the forest path and eaten by scavengers like vultures and jackals and passed out as stool, or it will be burned and become ashes. Considering that the fate of this body is become stool, ashes, or earth, why in the world would we waste the valuable moments of this unique, opportunistic human form of life for benefits which are temporary? This is verse we quoted yesterday from the 22nd verse of the 5th chapter, from the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita 20. Yehi samspashajava dukkha yonya eva cha adyantavanta kontya na te shuramatobupa. Again, kovya. Those who are intelligent, they do dukkha yonya. What is the yona? Yona means womb or the beginning. Dukkha means misery. Where does misery begin? Because we're eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. We're Ananda. We're part of God. We're particles of light. So how do we get into this compromise position of misery? Where did it begin? Adyantabantaka. When we turned our attention away from that was the eternal, imperishable, immutable, and primeval, from our essential selves, and we became enamored with matter. Dayato visham pumsam sangachanje kamarhora vijayate. Says by contemplating the object of the senses, one becomes attached to them. From such attachment, lust arises. From lust, anger. From anger, bewilderment of memory. And then finally, one falls down into the material. Krodha bhavati samaha shamaha shmiti brahmshadbhuti. One forgets who one is and from where one comes because of absorption, distraction by the senses of the material sense objects. We need to transition from material bodily attraction or sense gratification to again seeing ourselves as an instrument for the pleasure of the Lord. Tajma tomutishta lashiva jitva shankam bhajam mayaiva bitam nimita macha vyabhisavasachan. Arjuna says, just use me, Lord. Don't see me as something independent with independent will, independent thinking, independent feeling. Let me synchronize with your thinking, your feeling, your willing. Use me as an instrument. And this is the secret. Our miseries began when we saw a divergence of interest between our interests and the interests of the Lord. So when once again there's a convergence of interests, miseries cease. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. You feel any convergence take place when you talk about I and mine and this and that, and you gossip and you complain and you're self-absorbed. You compare yourself to others and you're in competition with others and you're envious of others. Do you feel a divergence from the loving Father of us all? And when you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, do you feel a convergence? Do you feel a link, a yoke reestablishing itself? Krishna Baliya Sajiva Bahir, Ataiva Maya Tarideka Samsara Dukkha. The beginning of our dukkha, our misery, the beginning of our entanglement in this samsara was when we forgot Krishna. That's the beginning, yoni dukkha. We become distracted by that which is temporary, that which is inferior, the external energy of the Lord. All that turns around when we begin to remember the Lord. Shravanam kirtanam Vishnu smaranam parasevanam archanam bandhanam dasham sakyam atma nivedanam. Chanting, hearing, as a result of which we remember, we begin to serve the lotus feet, we worship the Lord, we pray to the Lord, we offer everything to the Lord. There are 9 processes of devotional service, but they all begin with chanting. Tajmad Bharadasha, Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari. We are parts of the whole, and so as parts, it is our natural constitutional position to serve, honor, and glorify the whole. Tajmad Bharata Sarvana. There's no good time or bad time. There's no good place or bad place. Tajmad Bharata Sarvata. Every time, every place, every circumstance is good. Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari. Why? Because he's the Lord and he's everywhere present. There's no place where he's not. Where you're going, he already is. Where you've been, he was. Where you are, he is. Sharvasha Chahamridi Shanavishto. He's within the hearts of all living beings. Pantashtu Kati Andantarashta. He's within the atom. Tajma Bharat Bhagavan Ishvara. Therefore, for the process of hearing and chanting, there's no time which is inappropriate. Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shotadhake Deas Pujas Nitya. This is our main business in the human form of life. This is the priority of those who are Kovida, who are intelligent, those who have left their intelligence somewhere along the side of the road, who are anxious after getting those same sense stimuli which are freely available to the hogs and dogs who have missed the opportunity of serving the Lord in loving devotional service. They are victims of a tragedy which is unimaginable. When unlimited, ever increasing, expanding, transcendental happiness is ours for the taking, what a tragedy it is to miss out on all of that simply for mucking around in the material world of self-centered sense gratification. It says, according to our karma, we are sometimes experiencing the body of a demigod in the higher planets. Sometimes we're fallen to the level of cats and dogs or even germs in stool. Brahmanda Brahmite Kono Bhagavana Jiva. Our history in this material world is that of change, mutability, disruption. Mama Petya Purnarjama Dukalima Sashatam. We're packed up within the womb or with an egg where we're extremely uncomfortable for the period of gestation and we're shoved out into the light of day. We enter this world screaming in order to inflate our lungs, covered in blood and stool and pus or placenta or whatever it may be. We struggle to walk, we struggle to talk. So much input and energy is put into just getting us to walk again, to talk again. We have to go to school, sit at desks for years and years and years, and then way down the road, especially in the modern world, we get a degree when we're 20, 25, 30 years old. And then we get a job and we spend all those years paying back the student loans. And then we get a wife and kids and a minivan and a mortgage. And then we have to pay for the kids' marriage. And then we've got grandkids and we have to put aside a college fund for them. And where is peace? Where is happiness? It's all about change of the body, change of your planet, change of your residence. Our body is not constant, even for a day. Every day I read somewhere, 100,000 cells are dying, being replaced by another. In the course of a normal lifespan of 80 years, our bodies change fully at least 8 or 10 times. Every 7 to 10 years, all the cells of your body have died and replaced by new. This is a world of change. It's shifting sands. There's no stability. There's nothing you can count on. There's nothing you can lean on because everything, even this material world itself, even Lord Brahma and the highest planet themselves are subject to change. You cannot afford to lean against anything which is created, which is a byproduct of this material world, even the big demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Rama, Ganesh, and others. Only shelter. Maya Shaktamarana, Yoga Myoma, Asamsam Sama, Yata Jignashi, Yatachna. Krishna says to Arjuna, hear very carefully and very attentively. Maya Shakta Manaparta. Only those whose minds have taken full shelter, Maya Shakta Manapartam, Yunjam Yoga Madasraya, in connection, in yoking, in union with me, who have fully taken shelter. Asamsam samagramyam, yatadinashishis. Only those who have sheltered in me fully without any doubt and are committed as instruments in my devotional service. Only those are not subject to change. Everyone else, ayarati vaipamsham, udyam ashtam chianato. The rising and the setting of the sun robs them of another day of life. The moment you're born, you're moving towards death. That is without a connection to Krishna consciousness. It's not that you're 5 years old, you're 5 years closer to death without the great assets of devotional service in your life. Those who are without any sense of God consciousness, any sense of a higher purpose in life, they live in order to die, they die in order to live. And there's nothing learned in any of that, just swimming in ignorance. That's why we say, Om Agyana Timarandasya. I offer my respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of a spiritual master He came to me while I was in the darkest region of ignorance, and with the shining torchlight of knowledge, he opened my eyes. So we give up this changing, miserable, unstable, shifting landscape of the material world for the solidity, for the shelter that Krishna promises in devotional service. We grasp the lotus feet of the Lord. We cling to the Lord. Ananda taduja kinkaram patitam bamshim kripaya tara para pantaja stita deli. Lord, our prayer is stita. Let me be fixed. Let me grasp with all of my strength, all of my mental powers, shelter of your lotus feet, so that I may know you, free from doubt, so that I may be fully committed and fixed and prepared to act according to your instructions, just as Arjuna was prepared to act after hearing the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada says, out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets the opportunity to associate Ramana Guru Krishna Prasade P Bhakti Lata Beach. When one finally cries out, Krishna, save me, get me back home on the solid terra firma of spiritual life, within the shelter, within your sheltering embrace. Lord, please take me back. At that point, Guru Krishna Prasade, God's mercy, appears before you externally in the form of a spiritual master. Therefore, it is concluded by the mercy of Krishna and the spiritual master. Such a wandering lost soul receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service and begins to go back to home, back to God. Om Tat Sat. I hardly even touched the notes that I had this morning. We may revisit this verse next week. It's a very crucial, important verse. Tashaiva heto priyatedugo nalabhyate dukavadan yata ashukam kalina sarvatrika gabhyota ramasha. There's certainly a lot of nectar to be churned from this, and in fact, all the verses of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. At this rate, it's going to take us many, many lifetimes to work our way through the Bhagavatam. That's okay. I'm enjoying your association now, and the idea of being together as we go back to home, back to Godhead, is not at all unappealing. Thank you, Ram Kishore. Hari Hari Bo. Jaya Radhe. Earlier on, we answered one of the questions that you asked from your comments yesterday. Prashant, thank you, Prabhuji. We threw a lot of verses out today, challenged you on many different levels. Here I'm seeing Prashant, Maya Shikta Manobara, I think it's 7-2. Yoga Yogana, Sham Sham Shamam Yata Jignashashi Tachum. Maya Visharo Manoya Mam. Dayato Visham. Prashant's right there. Krishna Baliya. Mama Pecha. Yes, we're backtracking from the end back to the beginning. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Sarvashatam. It's easy for me to say these off the top of it, but Prashant has to actually go in there, find the link, and post them. He's even busier than I am during these 45 minutes of our Wisdom Wednesday sessions. But thank you, Prashant. We are so grateful to you. Bye, Bobby. Rob, Bhakti Gary. Namaste, Gary. Thanks for joining us. Again, Ram Kishore is very active in Minneapolis, doing a lot of things to introduce people to devotional service. Dibya Joshi, Govinda Day, Hari 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 Bo, Govinda Day. Raleigh, right here in Spanish for it. Bear, thanks for joining us. Brent, appreciate it. Sanjay Sharma, he says the sound is good. I took a full half an hour before we went on the air. Even then I was a couple minutes late today to work out the sound. Basically had to put aside this wonderful Yeti microphone because it seems to create an echo. Jean, thanks for joining us. Sundari Priya, appreciate all of you, appreciate your comments. That's it for Motivational Monday, Transcendental Tuesday, and Wisdom Wednesday. We'll sign off for the rest of the week. Be back on the weekend or Saturday night's program in Salt Lake City. Sunday nights, Rath Yatra, the satsang on Sundays at 11 o'clock. Any last words for us, Rob? There.
Yes, Prabhuji. We need to yoke ourselves to Krishna. It's not about stopping what we're doing, but instead changing it into a devotional mindset and doing it for him. And that's how we'll progress in Krishna consciousness.
And we can do it from any position of life, as a businessman, as a worker, a graphic artist, an artist, musician, but especially favored are those who get down in the dirt, who get down and plant seeds and harvest and weed and nurture, water the seeds within the soil, so that we can have produce, we can have grains, melons, corn, all kinds of beautiful byproducts of the earth, with which we can then cut up, cook, and prepare, offer to the Lord, and then sit down together in this association devotees and honor prasadam. With the energy that we got, we can sing and dance and chant Hare Krishna. So Rob, let me tell you, you're especially gifted and blessed to be able to work the soil. We're also especially gifted and blessed here in Spanish Fork to have 14 acres of land and have 2 big gardens, have volunteers that assist us in nursing out the bounteous produce from Mother Earth by the grace of the Lord. So bless all those who in any way, shape, and form have dedicated their talents, their gifts, and abilities in the service of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama,